Hi everyone, I'm Natasha from Floral and Brick. I'm in the process of converting my traditional cutting gardens into ecological, native plant, wildlife friendly cutting gardens. So I hope you come along with me on the journey. Today I'm going to show you my backyard garden, which is a lot of non-native plants, but I am adding in a ton of native plants. So I'll show you those today. And a lot of native plants volunteer themselves here through mostly bird droppings, and I let them just do their thing, so I'll show you those as well. I'll also talk a little bit about the process of maintaining a cutting garden while focusing on having native plants and how that works overall as a plan. So let's go take a look. My main strategy for creating a ecological cutting garden is to create a mini ecosystem. So trying to mimic what happens in nature with thinking all the way from the soil to the ground cover to the smaller plants to the shrubs up to smaller trees and then up to the canopy trees, and trying to have something that could work as a cut flower that is a native plant throughout all those areas, thereby creating the ecosystem that benefits wildlife and is eco-friendly, but also, if it starts thriving enough, can provide cut flowers along with the non-native plants in the cutting garden. So I'm going to go through and show you some of the native plants that I have so far. Most of this yard right now is not native plants, it's all just cut flowers. So you'll see tulips, daffodils, a lot of peonies, shrubs, but what I'm going to focus on are the native plants. And I'll start with ground cover, which is, there's a lot of spring ephemerals, which you may have heard of, and they're the first flowers to bloom in the spring. They just have tiny little flowers and they don't last for very long. So I don't think they would be good cut flowers. I would have to have as many as I have of these violets. See all this blue all the way through. I have it everywhere. I would need to have that much of a spring ephemeral in order to use it as a cut flower, because I wouldn't want to be taking from something where there isn't that much of it and using it as a cut flower. So for ground cover, I will mostly in my garden just be thinking of enjoying the beautiful early spring blooms in my garden without cutting them, and providing for pollinators and caterpillar food through the leaves that way. Here and there might be an opportunity to cut them. Like with all these violets I have, I would cut some of these, put them in tiny bud vases. I would use them in edibles, you can make lemonade from them, simple syrup from them. You can press them, you can put them on cakes, put them in salads. Like there's a lot you can do with them. And since I have so many, I would probably do that. But with something else that I have, like I'll take you over to where I have another early spring bloom that I would not touch, and it may take many years for it to be abundant enough to ever even think about popping in a bud vase, because I just don't want to take from something that isn't abundant. It hasn't quite opened up for the day. It closes at night. This is Claytonia, but it has this adorable blush flower. So if this spread a bit in this area and I had more of it, I would maybe use that in a bud vase. But another one is hepatica. That's the cute little leaf of the hepatica. It also has, some of them have a dark leaf. I'll show you this hepatica leaf. So those are spring ephemerals that they're very new to my garden, and I am going to hope that they spread, and I'll see what kind of use I can make of them. For now, the abundant one I have is the violets. And I call it green mulch. Well, I don't just call it that. It's called green mulch because if you have something growing in your soil, like the violets or another ground cover, you don't need to worry about piling on wood mulch. The way nature works is leaves, like I have here, fall from the trees and add nutrients into the ground and act as a mulch, suppress weeds, and then things grow in the ground. So if you can have things growing in your soil, roots in the soil, that's the best for the soil health and for your garden overall. And then any other space just to have some leaves is great. The thing with an ecological garden is remembering that you're mimicking nature. I think it almost becomes easy because if you just pay attention to what happens in nature, you can be guided with what you should do, because nature works, especially when you're talking about native plants. If you're talking about bringing in tropical plants and things like zinnias, that their native area is in way hotter climates, and we'd kind of force them to work here and water them a lot and create artificial conditions, amend the soil with all sorts of compost, and everything we do is because we're forcing something that doesn't belong here to be here, and so we have to make it work. But if you're planting native plants, the joy of it is you don't have to do that. Every native plant I've planted in this garden, without exaggeration, immediately thrived because I just put it in, didn't do anything to the soil, and it just took off. This is where it wants to be, in this zone, and I didn't have to do anything. That's why you'll see a lot of things like gifts from the birds popping up in your yard, because if a seed falls, it almost wants to do really well in your garden. So that just reminds me of another little rule of thumb. I don't pull anything up until I can identify it, because I have huge regrets about pulling things up that ended up being something I would have loved to keep and may never appear again, because it was a native plant that maybe I can't find in a native plant store, and it was a gift from the birds, and I wish I hadn't pulled it up. An example is, this is a native plum tree, so it is going to have beautiful white blossoms. If you see wild plums right now, we're in early May. They are just finishing their blossoms in the wild, but this is a newer tree, like 2 years old, so it didn't have any this year, but it will have some in coming years. And when I first saw it coming up, I had what a lot of us experience, which is the panic that this is some kind of invasive weed tree, and I needed to get it right out, because I'm not great with tree identification at this point. And I'm just really glad I let it grow and didn't chop it down, because when I realized it was a native plum, that is something that I was going to purchase and plant, because I want a native plum as my small tree in my yard. So very thrilled with that, with my chair underneath to sit underneath the blossoms. And it will be cuttable once it's big enough. I could take a branch here or there for an arrangement in the spring. And I just love the thought of using a blossoming native branch. So that's pretty much it for ground cover. I have something else over here that's done blooming, so you're just going to see kind of the last dying off flowers. But cut leaf toothwort, you can see the nice cut leaves. That's why it's called that. And I have quite a few of them, and they're doing really well. You just look for the cut leaf. And it has a beautiful little flower. So I'm hoping that'll fill in this area. You can see around that, this is creeping bellflower. That is invasive, so I've been pulling that out wherever I can, but it's everywhere. But you just stay on top of it and keep pulling it out. And a great strategy is to make sure you have something like the cut leaf toothwort to go in to replace where you've taken out the invasive, so that something immediately takes over. And so any little roots that you've missed of the invasive can be replaced with a native that's doing really well and thriving. I'm doing that as well over here with my native raspberry. It's quite beautiful, and see it's stretching all the way down, and it's going to spread over here. And this strategy is in here. I have invasive periwinkle and more of the creeping bellflower, scilla, and English ivy. All of those are invasive. So I have my daffodils in here helping to keep some of that down, but it needs to be pulled out. Oh, and daylilies. So this is my invasive area. The native raspberry is going to keep doing its spreading into this area, and as I pull up the invasives, the raspberry will take over and create a nice raspberry thicket in this area along with my daffodils, and then I will hopefully not have the invasives come back. I have over here a wild geranium. I am trying to give it a little bit of space. If I see it start to spread, I can move some of these violets, because look how thick they are here, and then let that be another ground cover. Because a key thing with native plants is you want to have a large variety of types. You don't want to necessarily have just one type of ground cover. I mean, I'm thrilled that I do have these really abundant violets, and I'm not going to get rid of any of them, but if I can have areas of another type of ground cover, native ground cover, I'm going to do that, because what happens with pollinators and the larvae of the pollinators is a lot of them are specialist, and so like one type of butterfly larva will feed off of the violets, and then that's like their preferred plant. They won't eat other plants, and then another type of butterfly larva will only eat another type of native plant. And so I think that having as many as you can is a really good idea because of that specialization that happens in nature, and you want to make sure to give all the different types of caterpillars the food they need in order to survive and turn into the pollinators that we need. And the caterpillars are also a really important food source for birds, and birds eat so many of them. We have to think about supporting not only enough to turn into the pollinators, but also to be able to feed birds, because people may think that birds eat worms and feed worms to their young, and seeds and feed seeds to their young, but there's actually very few that do that. The vast majority of birds feed caterpillars to their young, and in our declining ecosystem, we have fewer and fewer caterpillars. So addressing that in your cutting garden is really a great thing to do. I just saw another ephemeral bloodroot. That really cool leaf in there is bloodroot. It isn't blooming anymore. It's already finished, but it's got a very cool leaf. So that's one layer, the ground cover layer. And then I have the next layer up is kind of smaller native perennials. And I have something over here that's still very small. Virginia waterleaf. It looks kind of similar to, this is avens. And I have a lot of avens. Like it's everywhere in my garden. And the thing with that, it's all in here mixed with the dandelion over there. The thing with that is I'm not sure if that is the native white avens or non-native yellow avens, which would be a problem because it takes over and it's not native, so I would be getting rid of it. But my identification skills with that aren't very good yet, and so I'm going to have to wait till it blooms to see if it's yellow or white. If it's yellow, I'll pull it out. If it's white, I'll keep it because it's a great native plant. I'm seeing what else there is that is kind of a medium height. I have this guy over here. It's new to my garden and it's called blue kobosh. I will write in what it is. I forget what the right word is, but that's going to be kind of a medium height plant with a white flower. Bird cherry, you might be seeing a lot now in nature. It's got these beautiful kind of brownish leaves. It turns more lime green leaves, and it has kind of a drooping white flower on it, and it's a gorgeous small tree. So I pulled out the non-native Japanese quince that I had here and put in this bird cherry that will fill this space out a little bit. So that's kind of a small shrub. So in terms of small perennials, I have more Virginia waterleaf. I'll show you a couple new things over here down this path. Another bloodroot with that cool leaf. This is horsetail. And then this is false Solomon seal. And it's smaller than typical Solomon seal that you'll see in a garden. And it has a nice feathery white flower that will be good for cutting once that takes off. So that's a few more things in there, along with my invasive lily of the valley that will have to come out. See the little lily of the valley. Recently I was on a hike and I saw an extremely dense patch of lily of the valley taking over the forest. So there's the Virginia waterleaf. So that was really sad and disappointing. Over here, Tiarella is another beautiful native plant with an early spring bloom. This is just in bud form, but when it blooms, it's an adorable little flower, perfect for bud vases. I'm not positive if this is a cultivar or if this is the native one. Cultivars are not the same as native plants. So if you have something like a Tiarella that is called like Tiarella snow cloud or has some kind of name like that, that means that it's been genetically modified and no longer is the native variety. So it's not going to support the feeding of the caterpillars that needs to happen with native plants because the genes aren't there to support those insects. So you don't want to plant cultivars of native plants. So it's not good enough to just know you're planting Tiarella in general or any of the native plants. You don't want to ever have a cultivar. You want to have the actual native species without having been adapted. Just a little note in case you didn't know that. I just have some regular cutting flowers over here. This is Astrantia, some Geum, and then I do have this snowberry, which is coming from another area in my yard, I believe, spreading over here through berries. And so I'm going to let this grow into a thicket over here along with the goldenrod. This is goldenrod. So I'll just show you my thicket. So I will be adding a ton more kind of medium-sized native perennials into this garden. I just am doing that once the threat of frost has passed, which is in a couple weeks. This is Baptisia, but this is a cultivar, so it comes up like a yellow and pink and really beautiful colors for cutting, but it's not the native Baptisia. There is a white Baptisia that is native that I am starting from seed and will hopefully have to show you in future videos. And then there's a near native Baptisia, the blue one, the more typical false indigo, that is near native, so that's pretty good to plant as well. But I have had this Baptisia, here it is again, a different one, in my garden for a long time, and it's a really good cut flower, but I'm excited to have the native one. So I'm just going to show you my thicket. So over here, this is a non-native raspberry that is thornless that I use for cutting. The native raspberry I showed you will not be for cutting. It's just to create a thicket, eat some berries, maybe decorate some tables with some berries, but this is cuttable because it is thornless and it's spreading. You can see babies popping up. But then over here we have, this is Deutzia and this is white forsythia, non-native. But behind that, that's honeysuckle, the native variety of honeysuckle, not the invasive one. There's a lot of invasive honeysuckles, but that one's the native one. Actually, I'll see if I can go closer to show you. I'll go the other way. I don't want to crush anything. This is the honeysuckle. It's a beautiful kind of brownish leaf right now. And actually it stays that brownish color for a lot of the year in my garden. And then next to it is another native shrub, snowberry. This is all snowberry, creating a nice big thicket. And this is non-native forsythia, which I'm sure all of you know. And I like it because it provides great greenery for me all year. Well, all spring and summer. But it isn't native, so I don't mind having it here, but I love my thicket of native shrubs like the snowberry that gets the white berries in the fall. And it's this nice sage green, and birds love going in this native thicket. They don't go in the non-native shrubs so much, but they do love the native ones. And it is spreading as well. Down here I have my small anemone that will hopefully bloom, but it's non-native. I will be planting the native anemones, which are perennial, not corms. Like these ones that you see all the time in floral design are from corms, and you plant them each year. They're beautiful, good cut flowers, but there are native anemones, and I'm very excited to show you that in future videos because I am planting a whole bunch of them. But these are the baby snowberry shrubs coming up, so I'm going to let that grow there. Next to my rose bush, which is obviously not native. There are native roses that are more like very thorny, rambly, small flowers. The cut flower roses that you think of that are more hefty, none of them are native, but they're great cut flowers, so I do grow roses. And in one of my other gardens, I have a native rose, so I will be able to show you that when it's in bloom, and that'll be really nice. So those are the shrubs, and then I have a little baby shrub I may as well show you. Over here I took out a dogwood that was variegated, which means it was a cultivar. That's its stump. And I put in this, which is a native dogwood. It's just a tiny little guy, but it will take over this space, against the fence. So I'm excited for that because the native one will do a lot for nature, whereas the cultivar that I had in there wasn't doing anything for nature. Birds didn't even land in it. It was just really not appreciated by anything. No pollinators, no birds, nothing went on that. So I'm really happy to have the dogwood in there. Something else just to think about providing variety is vines. So I have this really well-established clematis vine that's just starting to green out. It grows on its old wood. You don't trim it back. See some green up here. But there is a native clematis that I have ordered and I'm going to be planting. Actually, I do have one already growing in another one in the garden, so I'll be able to show you. And I would love to have that in here, maybe on this other trellis I have. These are my dahlia crates that used to be tulips, and now I'm trying growing 2 dahlias per crate. I'll let you know how that goes. Yeah, so I have this other trellis where I could grow a native clematis, which would be amazing to have a vine, another different type of plant. We have the ground cover, the smaller perennials, the shrubs, but then also the vines. So that will be really great. This is a lilac, common lilac, which is now considered invasive, or at least on the invasive watch list in Ontario. So I'll probably be getting rid of that. I do see it in nature a lot, and if it's starting to take over and do harm to nature, I don't want to keep it. So as much as I love the lilac flower, I just cannot have an invasive. It's just, if you get out into nature at all and see the damage being done by invasives, you just can never be okay with them. It's a really horrible situation, how they're choking out other plants. So all of this in here and on the other side is peonies. So when I first started this garden, I just knew peonies were a great cut flower. So all of those bigger shrubs there, it's all peonies. And I planted 50-ish in here and just thought, okay, this will be a peony cutting garden. But because I'm converting this into a native plant cutting garden, I'm going to probably take out every other one and put in some kind of native shrub, like the bird cherry that I was showing you, that will be similar size to the peonies. And there's other things, lots of other things, but spice bush, New Jersey tea, witch hazel, like these are all smaller shrubs that you can have in place of something like way too many peonies in your garden. And then you have a nice balance of creating that native plant ecosystem while at the same time being able to cut. You can cut from those ones that I listed and the many more that there are. So many of them are good cut flowers, either for greenery or for their flowers. But then you can have a balance of still keeping some peonies if you wanted, if you're doing a cutting garden where you would appreciate having those peonies, and balancing it with the native shrubs as well. So that will be my strategy here, and I will continue to show you that. But something I did do already before having done that is I have allowed goldenrod and asters. So these are the goldenrods. You'll probably see them coming up in your yard, and so you can kind of choose how many you want to let to thrive, but I let it grow everywhere around the peonies, because as soon as the peonies are done, and I've cut a bunch of them, they're just green leaves in the garden, not feeding any caterpillars, not providing anything for pollinators. So they're really not doing anything for the environment. So I have this goldenrod and asters, which I will try to find one to show you, an aster, that will come up and replace the space where the peonies that I've cut were. And they provide so much food for caterpillars and for their blooms, provide for the pollinators. And don't forget, pollinators aren't just bees and butterflies. Pollinators are flies and ants, and all sorts of things are pollinators. So it's great to just, let nature thrive in your garden. So the asters, let me see. Here, this is an aster. It looks kind of similar, but it is slightly different. Here, that's an aster, and then that's the goldenrod. Don't know if you can tell the difference, but it's a bit darker green, a bit smoother leaves, and a bit more heavy feeling, versus this is a very light leaf on the goldenrod. But both are great. Both have similar form, very big, tall, bushy, and they're just going to be amazing because they are just going to fill this space and be wonderful for pollinators. And then what you'll see, I did this video after chopping it all down, but these wooden sticks coming up, that's actually the old stems of the goldenrod, and I just chopped them down because I really liked having them through the winter into the spring. Birds would land on them. It's a great perch for birds, and then I'm sure there's insects inside the stems, and birds would spread the seeds as well because I left the seed heads on them. And so it's really nice to see that over the winter. And part of having the cutting garden is all about enjoying it and enjoying being out in it, which is why I have all these chairs everywhere, because I just like to sit in different parts of the garden and look at different areas, sit in the sun sometimes, sit in the shade sometimes. I'm sure you can relate, but keeping winterest, as I call it, winter interest with plants like dead seed heads that are beautiful with a little bit of snow on them, and just leaving the garden be and let it do its thing. I think that's a really beautiful thing and adds to my enjoyment of the garden. Just quickly show you some of the tulips. I've just been planting a hodgepodge of tulips and daffodils over the years. There's some hellebore, and show you some of the cute daffodils that are peach, really cute, and then another hellebore, and this hellebore over here. So those are non-natives, but great for a cutting garden, and it is easy to have native plants all around them as well. Now, we're really lucky to have the canopy trees, so if you have that, just be very thankful. It is so good for the ecosystem. Obviously, not everybody can control if they have a canopy tree. We're just lucky. It's actually none of them are in our yard. We just have them all around, but they aren't even ours. So I say we're just a very lucky middle house. But that's below that are the small trees. You can think about having a serviceberry, that's a good one, or there's a ton, like native chestnut trees. I can't list all the trees. I'm not as good with trees as I am with plants at this point, but it's something I'm trying really hard at, is to learn leaves, learn bark, but I find it extremely difficult. So I think it'll take me a long time before I'm really good with trees. But the point is, there are some go-to kind of mid-height trees like the plum that are great native trees to have. And it's great for letting birds kind of have somewhere to go that is above having house cats that are let outside, which is very harmful for birds. But if you have a thicket and a taller tree for them to fly into, it's kind of providing some safety for the birds. I have one more tiny little native plant to show you over with my ranunculus. It's my ranunculus just starting up. It'll bloom in a few weeks, but this is cinquefoil, which is cool. 5 leaves cinquefoil, and it will be a little perennial that I believe I can cut from. I just have to try it out for the first time this year, but I'm very excited to do so. So the other one that has just come up, this is, I always blank on this name. Fleabane. Always always blank on that. It's got these beautiful fuzzy leaves, and it's the native plant that looks like a little daisy. So if you're aware of the cut flower feverfew or chamomile, this is the native version of that. So it's got these rounded edged leaves that are soft and fuzzy, and then it is going to be a cluster of little daisies. So I have that all around as well. Let's see if I can find another one. Here's more of that Avens that I have not identified yet. This is my little makeshift water for wildlife until I get a bird bath fountain for the wildlife. Fleabane, fleabane. This is actually another one. Oh, see, as I'm going, I forget about what I have. This is Rudbeckia. So there's black-eyed Susan, which is Rudbeckia hirta, and that's native. This is also a native one. I believe it's called Triloba. Rudbeckia Triloba. And it is the one with, I have the old stem. So do visuals help? It's one with tiny multiple. So you can see these are the seed heads. It's not coming into focus, but it's got the tiny little mustard yellowy orange kind of daisies with the brown center. I'm just adding this to my stick pile over here. It's good to have a stick pile, deadwood. Leave deadwood in your garden. Having a fallen log, having a pile of sticks, it's all really good for wildlife. But anyways, that was Rudbeckia Triloba. I also have Rudbeckia hirta, which, just to show you the comparison, here's my invasive English ivy that needs to come out. I'm not showing you much up in this area because I need to clean it up, and it's a lot of non-natives at this point. But actually, this is native. This prefers a lot of moisture. It's really a kind of swamp plant. I'm not going to be able to, Filipendula. Yeah, that's it. That's what it's called, Filipendula. And it died off as soon as I planted it, and I thought, it's not getting enough moisture here, but then it came back. So I'm really excited to see if it blooms this year, because it is a tall plume of pink flower, like unbelievable, very cool. If you like amaranth, it's similar and it's native. So come over to this. This is all goldenrod, so that's good. I mean, it looks messy, but it's actually native stuff. Over here, where are you, Rudbeckia? I know you're in here somewhere. It has mostly actually, here it is. So this is the invasive creeping bellflower. I'm going to pop that out. While I'm here, may as well. But then this, next to this Avens, is Rudbeckia hirta. So it's fuzzy, darker green, a little bit different leaf than the Rudbeckia Triloba. But this, if I clear out all these invasives, some of this is violets, but a lot of it is the invasives. If I clear that out, the Rudbeckia should take over that space. So that's all I'm going to show you back here. Let's get out of this area. So I think that's everything to show you today. It will be more exciting to show you when I start replacing some of these plants with native plants and just getting all that variety in there. I think it's going to be really fun, but this is my introduction to how I'm going about it. And of course, if you have more of a blank slate garden and you're starting to do native plants, you can just plan your garden to be pretty much all native with a few of your favorite non-native cutting flowers, like have a peony bush, but then plan the rest of the shrubs to be native. You have a bit more flexibility if you have a blank slate, but if you're like me, adapting your cutting garden to be more native, then you'll do it the way I'm doing it. So thanks for joining me, and I will continue to show you progress and what I plant, and I will also show you my other gardens, because I have 3 and each is very different and a very different approach. They're at different people's yards. This is my yard, but then I also am lucky enough to grow at 2 other people's yards, and so there's always different and interesting things to see in those different style gardens. So I will show you that as well. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again.